How many of you are touched by diabetes in some way? All right. And how many of you, that person or that you know or that you are, type 1 diabetes? All right. And how many of you have only sort of discovered diabetes in your life within the last year, fairly new to it? I know that a few of you are in that position. Yeah. Without further ado, let me introduce Tiffani, who some of you know her from television, from Top Chef. Tiffani is the owner of Sweet Cheeks in the Fenway area, and she's getting ready to open a new restaurant called Tiger Mama.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I think this is an issue for me that has touched me personally. It's also on several different levels. I have people in my life that I love deeply that are type 1 diabetics, and then also I struggle with my weight, and this is the most effective way in terms of that I've seen and felt in my life in terms of managing my weight and feeling healthy and feeling strong. And I think for a long time I was kind of focused on how to lose weight and how to maintain weight in the wrong ways, like it was all the things I couldn't have, right? And it sounds really simple, right? Like if we can stop thinking about things we can't have, but start thinking about how to really feed our bodies nutritiously, then that sort of inherently puts us on the right path to take care of ourselves and starts to just kind of melt away some of the anxiety and starts to really, in terms of just being mentally healthy, put us in a good position to kind of think about how to eat. So the idea for this is hitting that thing that we want when we want a big bowl of pasta, when we want spaghetti, like just spaghetti and noodles and that kind of thing. And we're gonna chalk a ton of vegetables in here, so it's really healthy. We're gonna put a little bit of butter in it. I think things are really about balance. It's not about like, squeaky clean everything all the time. So spaghetti squash. This is our guy. We're gonna cut it in half. As it roasts, what happens is the inside actually pulls and has the texture of noodles. We're gonna season this a little bit. This is just olive oil, a little bit of salt, and some pepper. When we do this, guys, make sure that you just get in and kind of rub the olive oil all around the squash. Make sure you get the edges. That just makes sure that it doesn't dry out in the cooking process. So we're just gonna pop this guy in the oven. Getting this tomato sauce started, it's very simple. So it's 2-3 Spanish onions. These guys are small, so we're using 3. We're just gonna dice them up. The butter that we're using a little bit of butter in this. That's all in the entirety of this recipe. We'll use just a little bit to get it going. That will help emulsify the tomato sauce.
So let me jump in for a second.
Yeah.
You've been talking about butter, and as a dietitian, I want to ask you guys, so do you think it's not a good thing that she's using some butter in this recipe? Would you think to yourself, ooh, maybe I should switch that? It's totally fine. So, think about, I think this whole dish is going to be meat-free, and when you think about if this was a big pot roast or a meatloaf or chicken or whatever, you'd be getting all that saturated fat in the meat. So when you're making a dish like this, some butter that adds flavor to it is great. So I'm not at all worried as a dietitian sitting here thinking about that.
Good. All right, onions in. In the meantime, I'm going to cut our zucchini. This is about 2 things, right? Adding some more texture, adding some more flavor, 3 things, and then also adding a little bit more nutrition in it as well. So we're just going to really nicely dice these. So this is our just diced tomatoes, guys. Very simple. If you are in a hurry, this sauce can really be made 15 minutes, less than.
What ingredients are you trying to look for to evaluate how this might fit into your diet? What do you tend to think about for your own diet or somebody else? Carbs. Okay, so where are the carbs? In what foods? Yeah?
And squash.
Wow. You're one of the youngest people here, and you got the answer right away. So the squash. Now,
I just hired her.
Lots of kinds of squash. There's winter squashes, Hubbard squashes, summer squashes, zucchini squashes. The spaghetti squash and the zucchini squash and the yellow squash are pretty light in carbohydrates. So they're not what we call starchy carbs. They're lighter carbs. And they're only about 10 grams of carbs per cup of spaghetti squash. So when you think about the carb impact of it, it's not as much as if you were using like a butternut squash, something like that. All fruits and vegetables are made of carbohydrate, and all carbohydrate gets digested to the same common unit of chemistry. Anybody know what that unit is? Glucose. Right. We call it sugar, but glucose is what it all breaks down into. So whether that carbohydrate comes from a squash, a tomato, a rice, a bread, a chocolate, a sugar, a honey, a maple syrup, it all gets digested into glucose.
To have something that is delivering that flavor and that thing that you want in terms of like it's a little bit sweeter, but you're not going to see your insulin levels go through the roof, which I think is always the goal. All right, we're going to get our squashes started. The tomato sauce is going to be cooked. The spaghetti squash is cooked. And then we're going to add our vegetables into that, so it's going to become a composed sort of spaghetti dish. We're going to plate this one, and then Mike and I are going to work on rocking all these out for you guys. We'll have a little bit of lunch.
So let me throw it back to the group. What do you think of to think about filling up, bulking up on something so that it feels a little bit more satisfying when you get to your main dish? Yes? Water. Water, yes, that's certainly something. What else? Protein does. So there's the satiety value in things that have protein and fat in it. So the olive oil and things. You know, certainly starting with a really large salad. You know, we think about salad as just a little side dish, but make it a much bigger part of starting your meal with an olive oil or, you know, some beans on it that make you feel full. So we're really trying to keep meat portions a little bit smaller.
You like it?
Do this now. So it's
You like
time.
These healthy carbs going around right now.
Way better than any spaghetti sauce I've ever made.